the family Karen who lost it all. My name is Emily. I've always loved the idea of family, those warm Sunday dinners, holidays spent laughing together, the feeling of belonging. But in my family, there was one person who made that impossible: my cousin Karen. Karen wasn't just difficult. She was the kind of relative everyone dreads, the one who criticizes every little thing, stirs up drama for no reason, and somehow always makes herself the center of attention. She wasn't even the eldest cousin, but she acted like she was in charge of everyone. At family dinners, she'd dictate where people should sit. At holidays, she'd comment on every dish. "Oh, Emily, you tried again?" How brave. Maybe next time use a real recipe. When we were kids, it was just annoying. But as adults, it was toxic. She bragged constantly about her perfect life: her house, her job, her kids, who, truth be told, were terrors. She belittled anyone who didn't meet her standards. If you weren't wearing designer clothes, you were lazy. If you didn't have a high-paying job, you were wasting your potential. Most of us tolerated her for the sake of peace, especially because she had ingratiated herself with our grandmother, the family matriarch. Grandma adored her, or at least Karen had convinced her she should. And that favoritism is what eventually set everything in motion. Our grandmother was a wonderful woman, generous, kind, and fiercely protective of family. She owned the old family home, a beautiful two-story house that had been in the family for generations, plus some savings. Nothing extravagant, but meaningful. One Thanksgiving, Grandma pulled me aside. "Emily," she said softly, "I want you to know I've written a will. Everything will be divided fairly among the grandchildren. That house should stay in the family." I hugged her, relieved. It wasn't about money, it was about fairness. But Karen had other ideas. Over the next year, she ramped up her visits to Grandma. Suddenly, she was always there, bringing her groceries, helping with paperwork, reminding her constantly how much she cared. At family gatherings, she'd drop little comments. "Well, since I'm the only one really looking after Grandma, it just makes sense that she'd want me to have the house." We'd roll our eyes, but deep down, we worried. Karen was manipulative, and Grandma, in her old age, was vulnerable. Sure enough, when Grandma passed away the following spring, the bomb dropped. The will had been changed. Instead of splitting everything equally, the house and the bulk of the savings went to Karen. The rest of us got token amounts. The family was stunned. We gathered after the funeral, emotions raw, trying to process it all. Karen arrived late, wearing oversized sunglasses and a smug smile. "I know this must be hard for all of you," she said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. But Grandma knew I was the only one who really cared. "It's only right." I clenched my fists. "Karen, you manipulated her." Her smile widened. "Prove it." She wasn't wrong. Without evidence, contesting the will would be messy and expensive. Some relatives wanted to fight, others wanted to move on. But I couldn't. Not because of the money, I didn't care about that, but because she had taken advantage of Grandma's trust. That house was supposed to stay in the family, not become another trophy for Karen. That's when I decided I wasn't going to let her win. Karen loved to boast. On social media, she flaunted her success. New handbags, new furniture, lavish vacations. At first, I thought nothing of it. But then something clicked. How was she affording all this? Her job wasn't that high paying, and her husband's small business was struggling. Curious, I started digging. First, I checked public property records. Turns out, Karen had refinanced her own house twice, pulling out equity to fund her spending. Then I spoke to a mutual friend who had once been close to her. They mentioned that Karen often bragged about being too smart for taxes. That got my attention. With some careful searching, I discovered that she had been renting out parts of her home through short-term rental sites without reporting the income. On top of that, she had a side hustle selling designer handbags online, knockoffs she imported cheaply and sold at a massive markup. Both shady, both potentially illegal. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became. Karen wasn't just greedy. She was reckless. Revenge had to be methodical. If I confronted her directly, she'd deny everything, play the victim, and somehow twist it against me. No, she had to fall by her own hand. So I started small. At the next family gathering, when Karen bragged about her thriving side business, I asked innocent questions. "Oh, wow, do you have to report that income? I wouldn't even know how taxes work for something like that." Karen smirked. Please, the government doesn't need to know everything. She laughed. A few others laughed nervously. I just smiled and tucked that quote away. On social media, I noticed she posted pictures of rental guests staying at her home, clear violations of local zoning rules. Screenshotted. She bragged about buying luxury goods straight from the source. Screenshotted. Piece by piece, I built a file. And when the time was right, I made sure the right people saw it. It started with the IRS. I submitted an anonymous tip about unreported rental income and her online business, along with screenshots. Then, I sent a polite email to her local zoning board with evidence of her illegal rentals. Finally, I shared her posts and bragging screenshots in a private group chat with extended family. Not accusatory, just, wow, have you all seen this? The fallout was swift. The IRS began auditing her. The zoning board issued fines. Her business came under scrutiny, and payment platforms froze her accounts. And within the family, the illusion shattered. No longer was she the responsible, successful cousin who deserved Grandma's inheritance. She was exposed as greedy, dishonest, and reckless. Relatives who once stayed silent turned on her. At gatherings, she found herself isolated, whispered about, ignored. The final blow came when the IRS lien forced her to sell assets, including Grandma's house, to pay debts. The very prize she had schemed to secure slipped right through her fingers. I'll never forget the look on her face the day we drove past Grandma's house, now up for sale with a realtor's sign in the yard. Karen was outside, yelling into her phone, her SUV loaded with boxes. The house she stole was gone. The family she tried to dominate now saw her for what she was. And me? I finally felt peace. Not because she lost money, but because she couldn't tarnish Grandma's legacy anymore. Karen had thought she was untouchable, that she could manipulate, brag, and scheme forever. But in the end, her own greed destroyed her. And honestly, I couldn't think of a more fitting end. Like and subscribe. Share if this happened to you or someone you know.